What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. So we are back with Randy. What's up, man?
How's it going, everybody?
And he's going to talk about prison corruption. He's been in prison how many times?
11 times.
How the do you go to prison 11 times?
Doing stupid shit, right?
Jesus. Okay. Anyway, so today's video is going to be about prison corruption, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want to know your honest opinion. I want you to tell us everything. If this is the first video that you're watching, Randy is fresh out of prison. He just got out of prison 7 days ago.
Today is day 7.
Day 7, and his criminal history is robbery, firearms possession, theft. He's a recovering poly addict with 164 days sober.
Word. High five.
High five. It's awesome. I'm so proud of you, and my subscribers are really proud of you too.
Cool.
So, we already filmed one video with Randy. I will leave it on the card up here, so definitely go check that out if this is the first video that you are seeing. To get into today's video, though, 10 times, 11 times.
11 times, yeah.
11 times.
In and out, back and forth.
Would you say prison made your addiction better or worse?
Yeah, I would definitely have to say worse, you know. I did, for the past 16 years, you know, in and out of prison. I continued to use the whole time. I don't think I was ever sober in prison, you know? Except for this last previous time. I went to a prison/drug treatment facility, and I'm grateful for that, you know? There's very little drugs, if any, there, and
so Willard's doing it then.
Yeah, Willard, high five for Willard.
They're on it.
Yeah, so today, 164 you said?
Yep.
Today I have 164 days clean, and you know, using drugs in prison was a way to relieve the stress. I guess that's an excuse, right? We all make the excuse. So other than this time, no, I never stayed sober in prison.
A lot of my subscribers have never been to prison, so can you walk us through how you get drugs into prison?
All right, I'll try to keep it clean.
We want all the details.
Well, I'll keep it clean.
Okay. Go ahead.
The most common way would be through the visiting room when your family or friends, you know, come to visit you. It's open, you know, you're not between the glass, and you sit at a table together.
In New York State.
In New York State, yeah. Your visitor brings the drugs in usually either a condom or a balloon secreted inside one of their body cavities.
Their suitcase or purse.
Yeah, your prison suitcase.
Really gross.
Yeah. And then at that point, you know, at sometime during the visit, you know, the drugs are passed to the inmate, and we do the same thing, put it in the suitcase and bring it back to population, you know. That's the most common way. There are other ways. You know, staff, COs, teachers, counselors, you know, they're all subject to bring it in every now and then.
I'm gonna ask you a question I know the answer to already. This whole interview is me asking him questions I already know the answer to. So, did you ever take a balloon of heroin, put it in a bag of chips, swallow it, and throw it up on the yard? Was that a very specific question?
Heroin, no.
What was it?
K2.
It was K2? I thought it was heroin.
I don't prefer to swallow. I'd rather put it in my suitcase.
Were you caught barfing it up on the yard?
No, absolutely not. I was never caught smuggling drugs into prison.
Getting them.
I was caught and charged with conspiracy to smuggle drugs into prison.
Conspiracy's a bitch.
Yeah.
Conspiracy sucks, you guys.
Yeah. I wrote to a friend of mine and asked her to bring me some heroin and some marijuana, and my mail was actually being read. They call it mail watch. Yep. And they intercepted the letter, and I was charged with conspiracy to solicit and conspiracy to smuggle.
Weren't you also kind of caught doing Suboxone in the county jail last year?
Oh yeah, I wasn't caught doing Suboxone. I sold somebody some Suboxone, and they got caught with it, and then informed them.
Also basically conspiracy. So they didn't have the physical evidence on him. He had already left the county to go upstate to prison, and some people dimed him out.
Yeah, they dropped the dime. I received a 6-month sentenced for that. So after my parole violation, I had to come back to the county and do 6 months.
So let's get back on track to prison corruption.
Yeah.
You said staff bring in drugs. How often does that happen, and how would you start to solicit a correctional officer to get drugs?
It happens quite often, you know. Money and greed fuel everything. So I would say it's mostly about the money for them. Going about it is very common, by the way. Going about it, approaching them to bring it in, you know, there's a few different ways. Gradually is the smartest thing, because if you approach the wrong officer or the wrong staff, you're gonna get a ticket, you know, and you're gonna go to the box or to the hole, you know. So gradually, you know, what's the word? Manipulation. And that's how it goes, you know. You ask them certain questions first, you know. Hey, are you 420 friendly, man? Find out what they do in their life, you know. You know, how's this job paying your bills? Are you struggling, you know? I'll ask questions like that at first, and then pop the question, you know.
Would you befriend them a little bit? Maybe help them do their job so you seem a little...
Absolutely.
It doesn't seem like you're trying to go straight for drugs?
Absolutely.
Forgot count, man. Things like that?
Yeah, you know, things like that. Hey, man, the sergeant's on the way. Make sure you put your magazine away. You're not supposed to be reading. Hey, don't forget to call your count in. Little things like that. Yeah, absolutely. You got to befriend them, you know, make them trust you. And, yeah, that's how it goes, you know. Again, popping the question right away is not a good idea. Eventually, once you are comfortable with each other and have an open dialogue, pop the question, you know, how would you like to make a little bit of extra money? You know, I can put this in your bank account, or, you know, things like that.
You know, a lot of people watching would be like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? You guys, life throws you curveballs, and sometimes you need an extra $500, $1,000. And if that correctional officer is under a lot of pressure at home, maybe he's about to lose his house, maybe his child support payment is late, like, you never know. That's how it happens. And inmates that are very clever, i.e. Randy, can pick up on stress like that, and they sense it, they watch it. Like, not that I'm any better, because I would pick up on cues like that too, and I'd watch. We're there all day, 24 hours, that's where we live, you know? We can see your mood change. We can see you come onto the floor when you're a little bit stressed out. Maybe today's different than yesterday. We know everything. We see that wedding ring one week, the next week that wedding ring is gone.
Yeah.
So we notice everything like that. So that's how it starts. I kind of want to talk about violence in prison, because I get these questions a lot. How common is inmate-on-inmate violence and staff-on-inmate violence? Because very recently, cell phone footage was leaked of a federal inmate being beaten up so badly, and federal inmates were able to pass that along to news channels or however that got released. And you know, things might change in that federal prison because of that. But in your experience, having gone to prison 11 times, have you seen a lot of violence?
Yeah, more inmate on inmate. It's an everyday occurrence in most prisons in New York State. A lot of stabbings and cuttings. There's fist fights, you know, every day. Cuttings, you know, we'll use a razor blade or a can top. A lot of people prefer to have scalpels smuggled in, porcelain scalpels smuggled in from their visitors or correctional officers, so that we don't have to worry about the metal detector, you know? And a porcelain scalpel leaves a pretty nice scar, you know?
You could just Google that.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, a lot of violence, you know, due to many factors, whether it be the drug market, trying to control it, trying to take out your competition. Sex offenders are common prey. There's multiple reasons.
And staff would turn away if that was a situation. If it was a sex offender, they didn't see it for a little bit.
In some prisons, you know, they used to just point them out to us.
Yeah.
You know, hey, it's time for chow, everybody line up, and then they just pull them out to the side. Hey, this kid's here for touching kids, you know, and they were free game. There's been a lot of lawsuits in New York State, and
yeah, they're definitely changing the game.
It's not as common as it used to be, but they still point them out.
They walk the yard?
Do they walk the yard? Yeah. I guess it depends on who they are, you know. Some of them got balls enough to come out, you know. Most of them stayed in themselves and don't make too many friends, but some of them stay together, you know. The sex offenders stay with the sex offenders. Most common violence is gang violence, though, on the inmate to inmate. In New York State, the most common gangs are the Bloods, the Nietas, the Kings, the Latin Kings. The Crips are the minority, and they don't stay in a facility too long. You know, they're there for a day or two, and if they announce themselves, we call it getting shot. They're cut, stabbed, and they get up out of there. You know. So yeah, inmate on inmate, most common violence gangs.
So what's the biggest gang in the Department of Corrections?
In New York State, it would be the Bloods. In New York State, that's the most common. Second, the Latin Kings. Third, probably the white organization, which is called 88. The 8 standing for the 8th letter of the alphabet, HH, meaning Hail Hitler. You know, it's a neo-Nazi group.
So they're insane.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they're not good people. You know what I mean?
Do you have to join a gang if you go to prison?
No. You know, there's definitely no pressure, you know. Sometimes people will approach you if you know, if you possess qualities that they might feel could benefit their organization, but as far as pressuring into becoming a member, no. You can stay to yourself. It's pretty easy in New York, you know. You can do your time, do your programs, work on yourself, and go home. It's definitely an open choice.
Okay. Has a correctional officer ever assaulted you?
I've been assaulted twice. The first time I was assaulted was in 2010. I was in Chateauguay Correctional Facility in northern upstate New York near the Canadian border. And I was found in possession of a homemade tattoo device. And when they were processing me on the way to the box, I was going to the SHU. They put me in a small room and told me to place my hands in my pockets, which is common when you're going to the box. It's common. You put your hands in your pockets, and you know, they'll pat frisk you and get you on the bus and get you to the box. When I put my hands in my pockets, the lieutenant told me to keep my mouth shut, and if he asked me any questions, the answer was sir, yes, sir, sir, no, sir. The first question he asked me, I answered yes, sir, and the correctional officer that was standing in there with him closed fist punched me in the face, which almost immediately swelled my eye shut. The lieutenant reprimanded me and said, you know, I told you to say sir, yes, sir, not just yes, sir. So the lieutenant reprimanded me for not saying sir, yes, sir. A few questions later, I slipped up again and was punched in the face again, which, you know, swelled my right eye shut. At that point, I was taken to my hearing, which is basically a court process to find you guilty or not guilty of the offense you were charged with. That was it. They found me guilty, took me to the SHU. Upon entering the SHU in New York State, it's state law that you see a nurse, and they have a series of questions that they ask you. And one of the questions is, in the process of being transported to this facility, did you receive any injuries from staff or inmates? I didn't see a nurse for 2 weeks.
So just to kind of bounce off of that, I want you to talk a little bit about who runs the prisons. You know, so the correctional officers might be a husband, the nurse might be the wife. It's families, right? Talk a little bit about that.
That's where the corruption comes in, you know? Them bringing me to that facility, to that box, there's a very great chance that nurse is related to any one of those officers. Maybe his wife, his cousin, brother. Well, I guess she wouldn't be his brother, right? Sister, mother, even. Yeah. They're all in it together. Yeah. It's a very close-knit group. We have a saying among us inmates that the people wearing blue, the officers, are the biggest gang in New York State prisons. And it's true, you know? So that was the reasoning, I'm sure, behind not seeing some medical staff for 2 weeks. My injuries were gone. I made a complaint. She said I had no injuries and couldn't help me, you know?
What happens if you try to write grievances against staff members?
The grievance process in New York State, huh? Grievances, as far as the form, are available at any time. Coincidentally, if you approach the officer and ask for a grievance form, sorry, we're out of them. We haven't made copies yet. That's the most common answer.
Yep.
But every now and then you'll get one.
Every now and then.
In New York State, we have what's called IGRC, Inmate Grievance Response Committee. Because of laws that were put into effect years ago, inmates answer grievances unless the grievance is written upon a staff member.
Yeah.
At that point, a superintendent will read the grievance and make his decision. Those grievances, 9 times out of 10, get lost in the mail. You never hear anything. You know, grieving an officer is you're not gonna get there. In New York State, though, we do have what's called OSI. It's called Office of Special Investigations. On the inmate phones that we use, if we dial #77, we're directly connected. It's free. We're directly connected to an outside agency that investigates any assaults, whether sexual or physical. Unfortunately, they're kind of in with the blue team, if you get my drift. They will come talk to you, though. It's mandatory. Most times, the investigation is unfounded, though.
What about the other time a correction officer assaulted you? What happened in that situation?
Oh, Jesus. You didn't hear this one yet.
I didn't hear this story yet?
No, it was last year in Marcy, just before I came home, dude.
Well, let's hear it. Come on.
So the second time I was assaulted was last year in Marcy Correctional Facility. Again, involving tattoos. I'm a jailhouse tattooer. So the second time I was assaulted by staff in the Department of Corrections was in Marcy Correctional Facility, in Marcy, New York. During a common area frisk, an officer was poked with a tattoo needle that was left in the gun. Somebody had hid it behind a bookshelf. It wasn't mine. It was another inmate's. I know it sounds stupid, but I do try to practice safety and cleanliness, and leaving a needle in my gun is just not something that I would ever do. So a few weeks prior to this, I had a random cube search, and I was found in possession of some contraband, some stencils of tattoos, a little bit of ink.
Yeah.
I wasn't written up, but I was reprimanded, you know.
What do you make the ink out of?
There's many different things we make the ink out of. We burn chess pieces and collect the soot, mix it with toothpaste or shampoo, water. Matchsticks work great.
This is why Jessica does not have prison tattoos.
Any type of soot, you know. Vegetable oil works the best.
A hard pass for me.
Or baby oil. So to get back to it, the officer was poked with a dirty tattoo needle, and because I was found in possession of some contraband a few weeks prior, it was automatically assumed that it was my gun. At this point, I had 19 days to go home. And after I was caught with the contraband, I gave it up, you know. I saw that there was some risk involved, and I was trying to go home when I was supposed to go home.
What does that mean, you gave it up?
I stopped tattooing when I was found with that contraband. With 3 weeks to go home, it was not worth it to me, you know. I was pulled out of programs by a CO. I was placed on the wall. We call it being placed on the wall. Put your hands on the wall, spread your feet, pat frisk. When the officer put me on the wall, he asked me if I had anything in my pockets. Sir, yes, sir. My ID and my cigarettes.
In New York State, you're allowed to smoke in prisons outside.
Outside, yeah. He put his right hand in my pocket, and I felt an object poke me in my thigh. And he said, "That's all you have? What's this?" I knew right there that I was in trouble, you know? It's not uncommon for an inmate to be set up with a weapon.
Oh my God.
If they know you did something wrong and they know that they can't prove it, they're just gonna put a weapon on your person or in your cell area, and that's a new charge, you know? You're going to outside court and a minimum of 2 years. I knew what time it was when I felt that. He poked me in the leg, did leave a little bit of a mark, handcuffed me, put me in the van, and I was transported to the sergeant's office. When I entered the sergeant's office, I was left in handcuffs, cuffed behind my back, and sat down in a chair. When I walked into the room, there was 9 correctional officers.
Oh my God.
No need, right? 9 correctional officers and 1 sergeant. The sergeant's name is Sergeant Lang, L-A-N-G. He sat me down in the chair and asked me where the rest of the equipment was. I explained to him that he knew I was caught with contraband a few weeks prior. I explained to him that it wasn't mine. He asked me whose it was. I told him I didn't know. He didn't believe me. He believed that it was mine. There was a CO standing next to me as the sergeant was asking me questions, and he immediately started smacking me open hand on the side of the face, knocked me out of the chair.
You're cuffed?
Yeah, I'm cuffed, and I would stand right back up every time. You know, I thought at that point that I was gonna get an assault on staff charge, that one of them would injure the other, and that's how it would go. That continued for approximately 15 minutes. They had no proof, and they had to let me go. Fortunately, they didn't set me up with a weapon or charge me with assault on staff, you know, and
You're lucky.
They let me walk out of there.
Yeah.
And I remember on my way out, you have to carry your ID on you at all times in New York State Prison.
No excuses. On
my way out, I patted my pocket, you know, and I realized I left my ID in the sergeant's office.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go back in this building. I want to get to my dorm and get away from these people. I have no choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I turn around and I go back in and I tell the officer that's at the front desk, hey, I left my ID in there, and he laughed at me. Oh, go ahead, go get it, you know? I walked into the sergeant's office, I told him I left my ID, he threw it at me. On the way out, the officer at the front desk got up and drop kicked me in the back from behind without me knowing, and that was the end of the assault. When the cuffs were placed on me, it caused nerve damage in my hands. Still to this day, both of my thumbs are numb and tingling sensation every now and then. I made no report because I know retaliation is mandatory after that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the coverage, but a year or 2 prior to this, in Marcy Correctional Facility, an inmate was killed in staff beating, and the family wasn't even notified. They buried the kid. Again, I'm not sure if there's any coverage. I haven't looked it up. And
it happens all the time.
It does.
What they do is they put them on permanent transfer in the fucking computer system. The family just gives up after a while. After 2 years looking for your loved one, they just stop.
Yeah.
They just give up. What are they gonna do? There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, the family member will call the correctional facility. Hey, the computer shows that he's in Clinton Correctional Facility. Sorry, we don't have an inmate here by that name or DIN number, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my experience with assault in the Department of Corrections, 2 times. You know, you're helpless to a point, you know?
So just to kind of close up here, I know a lot of people are like, what the heck happened? How'd you go to prison 11 times? He's done a lot of parole violations.
Yeah.
And the reason why he's been to prison so many times is because he's a drug addict. So what is the prison sentence that you're currently serving your parole sentence for now?
My current sentence is for attempted burglary and criminal possession of a firearm, being an AR-15. And a couple shotguns and maybe a 22. You know, they were pretty pissed off.
Was it the zombie apocalypse? Like, what do you need that for?
I burglarized a place and I was attempting to sell them to an individual that I met in prison like 13 years ago, and he was actually a confidential informant, and I was set up. So
where's he live? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Let's find him.
Just kidding. I really like the pop of a 12 gauge though.
Yeah.
You know, I love them.
The AR-15 sounds so much better though.
Not that I've ever shot one because I'm a convicted felon and I would never.
Yeah, we can't possess firearms. I prefer the sound of an AR-15 though. So yeah, attempted burglary and criminal possession of firearm. I was given a sentence of 2.5 to 5 years. At the time that I committed the crime, I was still on parole for a robbery case. I still owed parole 11 months. So my 2.5 to 5 was run consecutive, which means that I have to finish my first term before I can start the second. I was denied my first parole appearance at the 2.5 year mark. Well, it was 3.5. And I was released on my conditional release date last year on March 22nd. So that's my current term. I have a little bit less than 8 months left on that. And the plan is to stay out here and do the rest of it out here, you know, on parole.
Good, because I'm not writing those letters anymore, so.
Jess has been a big support for me, you know, throughout my prison terms, you know, the last two. In 2011, I was sentenced to prison for a robbery. And even when she was in prison, you know, she still found a way to get letters to me and give me emotional support.
Yeah.
The last one, you know, I just did 4 years and she was there the whole time. Letters, the phone was always on, you know, and the support never stopped. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
Yeah, of course. I mean, your sobriety matters more than our past and our dirty laundry, you know?
Absolutely.
So what I have today is a family and stability and sobriety, and I want that so bad for you, and Reese and I will continue to support you in every positive way that we can.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important to write someone on the inside, especially someone that can relate to that person.
Right.
You know what I mean? It makes you feel less alone. So
it does.
I have 9 pen pals. 8, you're home. I have 8 pen pals, and I think it's just important. So what I do is I have 8 notebooks on the counter, and when I'm coming through, I write a little line, and I do that all day, and I mail out 8 letters. You know, some of them are emails, but a lot of people are in the box right now for whatever weird cosmic reason. Everyone's in the hole. But yeah, it's really important because a lot of inmates leave prison with PTSD. I think you have PTSD, and I think that affects you daily.
Yeah, I you know, in a sense I do, you know, certain things.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to, and how do you plan on staying sober?
You know, I believe I made the conscious decision. You know, it comes down to the choice.
Yeah.
You know, there are triggers, people, places, and things. You know, we all know the triggers.
He is in that right now. He is in his hometown.
Today, no, I don't feel anxious. I'm comfortable with my mindset right now. You know, I feel like I've made that decision that, you know, getting high is only going to lead me back, you know. I'm grateful that I do have a positive support system, you know, you included, and also Reese. These are people that I can turn to, you know. I have, you know, some family members that support me as well. And if I do feel anxious and I do feel the urge, I'll call you guys, you know. That's something that I'm truly grateful for, and I really appreciate the support from both of you.
You don't only have our support, but you have 54,000 subscribers cheering you on in the comment section down below.
High five.
All right, so thank you so much for meeting me again. We're also gonna film a Q&A, you guys. You've all asked some really juicy questions, so stay tuned for that. Stay safe, stay sober, do not break the law, and I will see you guys in my next video.
Till next time.